Joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live, I'm Kevin McPherson. This is my post-game, and what a big post-game it is. Year one under John Calipari and the Razorbacks have staked the Hogfather to a 1-0 record in the NCAA tournaments, an upset over Kansas. We've seen this now in two of the last three NCAA tournaments. When you start talking about seeding, and Arkansas upending Bill Self's Jayhawks. This time Bill Self was on the other bench. The Arkansas Razorbacks 79, Kansas 72 was a game that saw some lead swings and lead changes throughout. You thought Arkansas would take command here and there. Arkansas builds an early 10-point second half lead, 54-44, on a 7-0 run to open the second half. Then Trevor Brazile hits one of two free throws, and it actually expanded to an 8-0 run, and Arkansas leading by 11 points. But there was only one problem. We know this Razorback team, and I tweeted this, is this the point in the game where now that they're up double digits, where they have those self-inflicted wounds, long implosion stretches, where the other team gets back into it? And that's what we saw. Arkansas was outscored from about the 17.5-minute mark down to just under 4 minutes to go. They were outscored 23-10. They were down by 3. And then the defense really started making plays. Arkansas outscores Kansas 15-5 in the last 2:56. And Arkansas generated 6 steals in that. Now, some of that was due to Kansas sloppy play, but I thought Arkansas made plays on the ball, and you saw Arkansas take advantage of that. And there's so many different heroes in this game for Arkansas. When you look at first half, second half, both halves, we're going to get to individual players, but the key here is Arkansas moves to 21-13 on the season. John Calipari now 1-0 as head hog in the NCAA tournament. Think about the last 5 years at Kentucky. Now, granted, the first of that last 5 year span was the COVID year where Kentucky actually won the SEC, but there was no SEC tournament beyond that first day of bad team games where Arkansas beat Vanderbilt and it got shut down. Kentucky had a double bye to the quarterfinals. No SEC tournament for Kentucky that year, and no NCAA tournament, obviously. But including that season where you have no tournament, he went 1-3 in 3 NCAA tournaments in his last 5 years at Kentucky. So he's equaled his number of tournament wins at Arkansas in his first game as head hog in the Big Dance that he had in his last 5 seasons at Kentucky. And we know what the Hall of Famer's done. I mean, he and Bill Self come into this game, two of the winningest coaches, not only in college basketball history, but when you look at the NCAA tournament, they almost mirrored each other, and Calipari gets another advantage here. I think this is only the third time, as many times as they've matched up, that it's been in the NCAA tournament, and the other 2 times each coach, that his team beat the other coach's team in the title game to win a title. So they were 1-1 in that, Self beating Calipari's Memphis Tigers back in the day. Excuse me. And then Calipari in his only national title, Bill Self has 2. Calipari's only title in 2012 and 13 with the win over Kansas for that title. I think it was 12-13, either 11-12 or 12-13, Anthony Davis. But here they are back in the NCAA tournament. And unofficially now, Arkansas 2-0 against Kansas this season. The Razorbacks won a charity exhibition game to start this whole season off back in October in Bud Walton Arena. The place was packed. Arkansas jumped all over Kansas, and you saw Arkansas's backcourt dominate with size, athleticism, physicality, getting to the basket. And I think it was a game where DJ Wagner and Boogie Flan combined for like 46 points. I think Wagner had 25, Flan 22. The game didn't count, but Arkansas won by 16. No Hunter Dickinson in that game, no Jonas Adu, which is very interesting because we talked so much about the missing pieces just for an exhibition game. Kansas was also without a couple of guards. But in this matchup today, I thought Arkansas was the better team. And mostly for both halves, it was a big offensive first half. Arkansas led 47-44. Then it was just a drought of scoring. Even before Kansas went to a zone in the second half, after Arkansas went up 11, Arkansas started missing shots at close range. And then Kansas went to a zone, it got worse. Arkansas was trying to shoot over it, couldn't quite figure out how to attack it. We've seen that movie before, but the Razorbacks find a way to turn up the defense in the end after Kansas fought all the way back down 11, up 3. Again, 67-64, just under 3 minutes ago. From that point on, Arkansas forces 6 turnovers, gets a ton of stops, scored in transition with a Boogie Flan layup after a steal. And we saw, we're going to go through the individual performances. Boogie Fland missed 15 straight games. And now I guess we know the answer. Can he help Arkansas win after going up, starting 0-5 in SEC play? Well, we never saw him in another SEC game. Arkansas went 9-6 in SEC games after that, 15 games after the 0-5 start. But we have seen him on neutral courts help Arkansas beat Michigan for a quad one win back in December. And here you are against a non-conference Big 12 school, And Arkansas, by the way, has even the record against the Big 12 this year. Arkansas lost to Baylor in game 2 of the regular season after beating Kansas in the exhibition season, losing at TCU in the exhibition season. Then you lost to Baylor in a regular season game. So you evened up the score in the regular season by knocking off Kansas against the Big 12, and you've evened up, if you want to count the exhibition results, you're 2-0 against Kansas this year, and both of your wins helped against the Jayhawks, helped you even up the score against the Big 12. These are two teams that we go back again to exhibition. We won't talk a lot about that, but both teams, Kansas was the number 1 team in the country. Arkansas was 16th. They're shadows of what they were projected to be, but they're still good teams. They were still dance worthy. And I said this, I wrote this in my pre-West region playing in Providence, Rhode Island. How far East Coast can you get playing in the West region? We know how the pods work in the NCAA tournament now. It used to not be this way, but it has been for a few years. But the NCAA tournament has a really cool sense of humor and understands how to get eyes and butts and seats to watch games. And you put it 3 Hall of Fame coaches within a direct line of fire. Calipari, Bill Self, if St. John's wins as expected against Omaha, I'm looking tonight at this early. It's early, but Omaha 7-0, led by former Arkansas associate head coach Chris Crutchfield back at his alma mater. But if St. John's wins, you've got Rick Pitino. And these coaches' careers are entangled, not only because of the big games they've played in, but some of the back and forth over the years in recruiting and some of the things they've said about each other. There may not be a whole lot of love lost between Pitino and Calipari. Calipari has a winning record against Pitino technically, but it's close, and Pitino has a big win over Calipari, and Pitino's first and only technically by letter of the law national championship. That was at Kentucky, beating Calipari's UMass team in the Final Four to advance and then beat Syracuse back in the 95-96 season. One season removed from Arkansas's back-to-back appearances in the title game under Nolan Richardson. We know the Hogs won one of those, lost the other. So the history is rich, spanning decades. All 3 of these coaches, by the way, were Hall of Fame inductees in the 2010s. They've already proven themselves, and yet here they are in the biggest stage again, the NCAA tournament, and there's an opportunity here now. You expect St. John's to come back and win this game down very early at 7-2, just 4 minutes in. So it doesn't mean a whole lot right now, but we'll keep an eye on it. Upsets already, especially in Providence. I think, excuse me, guys, you're going to have to hang with me here. I think from another region, but in this pod or at this site, there was a 5-12 upset, Clemson going down in flames earlier today in the day sessions. Sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on this game here. So there have already been upsets here. We'll see if Omaha is able to do anything. That's an interesting thing with the Razorbacks, because after taking that 10-point lead, the Hogs started to fade a little bit, like we've seen them do with some of those lazy passes, deflections, turnovers, just some weird stuff. I thought when Billy Richmond came to the game, he really struggled with shot selection and just staying on his feet. Carter Knox got a little antsy out there. He did some good things in this game, but he got a little antsy and had some turnovers as well. Big Z was unplayable again in this game. I thought maybe getting out of the SEC and getting a different look, but Kansas's front line, when you look at Hunter Dickinson, when you look at Bendinga athletic, playing around the rim, and Dickinson taking you out and going to school out there in that 2-man game out high, it was just not Big Z's night. 4 minutes in the first half. So let's go through some individual stuff, because we kind of talked about what Arkansas needed to do at the end to turn their fortunes around again. Because Arkansas, I think they led 7 out of the gates. Kansas came and grabbed a 4 or 5 point lead. Arkansas finished the first half strong, took a 3-point lead at halftime. Where are all the Kentucky fans who said Cal was done? Yeah, where are they? Where are you, Big Blue Nation? You can jump in. Come on, the water's warm. Come on in. Yeah, I mean, let's see what happens in the second round. Calipari's got a chance to get back to the Sweet 16 for the first time. It's been, you have to go back to that 5-season block that he finished up at Kentucky. The year before that, I think it was 2018 and 19, his team advanced as far as the second weekend. So that's where what's on the table now. And you'd love to see it against Patino and St. John's. If there's an upset tonight, you're playing Omaha, so be it. But you'd like to see that second round matchup. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to get into recruiting a little bit. Haven't even mentioned that yet. Let's get through this game, though. I really want to walk through it. Jonas Adu, big first half, and big plays at times in the second half, but 22 points. Most of that damage was done in the first half. I think he had 16 at the break. But he stuck. When Arkansas was in its scoring drought, he stuck about a 19-foot shot. That was nice. He also hit both of his free throws at an important time to give Arkansas the lead back. Remember, Arkansas was down 67-64. Flan gets a layup in transition after a steal. Arkansas is down a point. And I believe after Arkansas got another turnover, I believe it was Adu that blocked a shot or got credited with a steal with Bundinga near the basket trying to go up. On the other end, Adu gets fouled. He makes both free throws. Not the best free throw shooter, but he made both. So big plays, but 22 points, big plays down the stretch, big first half, 22 points, 10 of 19 from the field, made both of his free throws, 5 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 3 steals. In 39 minutes, he was only off the floor 1 minute. Now just think about 4 or 5 weeks ago, 3 weeks. It hadn't been that long ago that it was, I mentioned today, lately, Big Z's not playable. It was Adu and Trevor Brazil, who we're also going to talk about, another double-double for TV, that were barely playable for very long stretches. You were just trying to steal some minutes from those guys with a short rotation. But Adu gets it done tonight, a box plus 5 in those 39 minutes. In a game you ended up winning by 7, again, 79-72. Final score, the 10 seed Arkansas Razorbacks upsetting Kansas. The 7 seed, we know 2 years ago, Arkansas was in the dance, not in the dance last year, losing season under Eric Patrick Melsman, his 5th and final campaign at Arkansas. But 2 years ago, a team that went 8-10 in the SEC, a losing record, just like this one went 8-10, split games in the SEC tournament, just like this team did. But that team ends up beating Illinois in the first round as an 8 or 9 seed. I think Arkansas was an 8 seed, or were they in the 9 seed? Either way, upset Illinois and then knocked off the defending national champion, regional number 1 seed, and the 4th-ranked Kansas Jayhawks to advance to the Sweet 16. So in Arkansas's 2 most recent NCAA tournaments, it's Kansas who they beat in the first weekend. But again, this is to get to the round of 32. The previous is to get to the Sweet 16. And because you didn't go to the tournament last year, it's the second time it's happened in the last 3 seasons. So just a little bit of history there. But we went through 80 stats, what that looked like for him. Nelly Davis, 18 points. Nelly was the one guy because Arkansas kept chucking up threes, and there was one ill-advised one after a steal that he had in the backcourt where he just took you talk about lazy passes and deflections. He took a very casual 3 where he just really was feeling himself a little too much and a little too comfortable. It wasn't close to the rim. It was like a turnover. Arkansas had a numbers advantage, and he set a little bit there and was a little too relaxed on that one. But still, 18 points, 5 of 10 from the field. He made his only 2-point field goal because he went 4 of 9 from 3. So you're going to take that 3-point shooting all day, every day. I guess we can forgive that lazy attempt. Made all 4 of his free throws down the stretch. That was huge. Because free throw shooting, we're going to look at both halves and how that was one of the biggest stories of this game, one of the big storylines. Excuse me, but in addition to his 18 points, Nelly with 3 rebounds, 2 steals, an assist, 1 block in 31 minutes. And I always talk about his box score plus, how it's always elevated relative to most of the guys on the team, how he and Adu Thero were kind of those 2 guys consistently. Thero's been gone for a while, and it's been Nelly for the most part, not every single game precisely, but typically box 13 plus 13 in his 31 minutes. Arkansas's just better when he's on the court. DJ Wagner did most of his damage in the first half. He's been a big second half explosion offensive guy. 14 points tonight, 12 of those in the first half, but knocked down all 3 of his free throw attempts, hit a couple of those late. Again, when you had to go to the line and be really good, Only 1 of 4 from 3, but 6 assists to lead the Razorbacks in this one, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 turnovers in 40 minutes. He didn't come off the court. He led this team this season in minutes per game at just nearly 34.5, but he played all 40. And he was a box +7, so that was the final margin. He was good for it. Because he was out there all 40, it makes sense. His box is going to equal what the final margin of victory was. But I thought the 2 turnovers, now look, a couple of those lazy passes were on him. This is part of his DNA. But we've seen so many games lately, even when Arkansas is finding a way to win, where he's got 3, 4, 5 turnovers. Only 2 tonight. And in a game like this, you just shrink down those margins, just chop them down, and he did that. Boogie Flan, let's talk about DJ Wagner, or excuse me, Trevor Brazile, and then we're going to get to Boogie. Trevor Brazile, 11 points. We saw a game recently where he was sat most of the first half with 2 fouls and came in and finished with 11 rebounds, all defensive, I think, in one of his double-doubles. And it seems like he and Jonas Adu are just taking turns with double-doubles. Some games they both have one. Tonight Adu, not as big on the glass with only those 5 rebounds, but Trevor Brazile, a huge second half, especially when Kansas went to the zone. This guy was an unsung hero in those final 20 minutes because what he did, he gave Arkansas a couple of big-time stickbacks off of misses. Arkansas was just puzzled, confused, and rattled in its half-court offense. Couldn't find ways to score, except Brazile kept a minute. It kept Arkansas on that 1 or 2 possession lead in that stretch when Kansas was coming back by getting those stickbacks. Arkansas also had a timeout where they came out and had a play set up for Brazile. They threw a lob pass. He dunked it. So TB also got in the paint against the zone, was fouled going to the basket, and he only made 1 of 2 free throws on that trip, had another trip where he made 1 of 2, but you got some production there. He had a 3 early in the game, but kept shooting and didn't shoot as well as he has been. Typically, he's good for 2 or 3 threes and shooting 50 or 40% tonight. That wasn't the case, but 4 of 9 overall from the field, and 1 of 5 from 3, and 2 of 4 at the foul line. I mentioned that, but 12 big rebounds. And that's, again, getting on the offensive glass. He had some big defensive rebounds. Brazile and Adu, you can't say enough about 2 veteran frontline guys who were persona non grata for so long, really stepping up and giving Arkansas a really good balanced backcourt, front court. And I could make the case that the front court's actually been Arkansas' strength in some of these wins of late. Tonight, you can make the case again. But again, Brazile, 11 points, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks, a steal, only 1 turnover, and he was a box +7 in his 27 minutes. So he matched the margin with his effort tonight when he was on the court. Remember, he sat a lot again with foul trouble in the first half. Carter Knox did some good things in this game. 6 points, 2 of 3 from the field, 2 of 3 from the foul line. He started well in both halves, but again, turnovers. He had 3 of those. He did have 3 rebounds and an assist. He was a box +2. Was only on the floor 16 minutes. He also had some foul problems, again, some turnovers there. And again, your freshmen, even though they're more savvy at this point, and you've seen the improvement with him and Billy Richmond III through the course of the season. I thought Richmond tonight was one of his worst games. 2 points. He didn't make both of his free throws, but 0 of 5 from the field. I thought his shot selection was poor. He got, he's a little too ready to shoot from 3 now after knocking down a couple in the SEC tournament. I mean, let's remember the guy comes in less than 15% on the season on very low volume. You just would rather Arkansas work for a better shot, and some of those he took early in clock. So I thought they were a little ill-advised. 4 rebounds for Billy, 1 assist, 2 turnovers. He was a box -2 in his 19 minutes. I mentioned Big Z, 0 points tonight, and the only other thing he gave Arkansas was 2 fouls. He was the worst box on the team, -3 in 4 minutes. Very small sample size, but you had to get him off the court in this one if you're John Calipari. And we saw the previous game against Ole Miss where Calipari started Jonas Adu in the second half of that game. And so he started again in the first half to start this game. I think it was the first time in 6 games this Big Z wasn't in the starting lineup to begin the game. And, of course, Adu played the second half, started there as well. But I saved Boogie Flan for last because I really thought Flan was one of the catalysts in this victory tonight. 6 points. He wasn't real efficient. 2 of 7. He got a couple of layups. One of those big in that late run after a steal. Was 0 for 4 from 3. He pulled up from 3 after KJ Adams got hurt. and had to go out of the game. And that was one of the things that really helped Arkansas. The Hogs were down by 3 at that point. Boogie gets a backcourt steal off KJ going down, pulls up from 3 and just misses it. So you feel for him a little bit not being able to get going there, but he made both of his free throw attempts tonight, and that was big. So Boogie Flan, 6 points, 3 assists, and 0 turnovers in 24 minutes. So, Calipari was saying he might play 10 or 15 minutes. We know how that stuff goes sometimes. Boogie was very much counted on, and I thought his leveling out Arkansas's ball handling in the first half, and even though there were some shaky moments and 10 turnovers, what was it? Arkansas had 10 turnovers total, so 3 in the first half, 7, more than double that in the second half. I thought Boogie was a calming effect on offense for Arkansas, promoting good ball movement. Again, 3 assists, 0 turnovers. He also had 3 steals in this game, and if you remember, we started seeing Boogie before he was a Razorback with those quick hands and being disruptive, somehow similar to how Nelly does it, getting to the ball, swiping at the ball. We saw that before he was a Hog. But then in that Kansas exhibition game, we saw it a lot in that blowout win, 16 points at home. Well, we saw it again tonight. Boogie is disruptive. At 6'2" or whatever he is, he's, he's not a big and sturdy 6'2". He's not exactly frail, but he's not, but he's active and and he's willing, unafraid to mix it up, and I like that. But 3 big steals tonight. He did give Arkansas a rebound. He was a box score plus 6 in his 24 minutes. So I thought Boogie Flan he and Trevor in Brazil were as big as anybody. When you look at the production that Adu and Nelly and DJ had, those next 2 guys were really kind of right there in the pecking order. And Arkansas went from a 7 deep rotation to 8. And what have we said when Arkansas's put together wins? What have I been saying? You're getting all hands on deck, but some nights you didn't get all 7 guys maybe having their best night or producing. But it was usually 5, at least 5. And then the other 2 didn't hurt you too bad that weren't producing as much. They were giving you just enough. Well, that was when Arkansas was down to 7. Well, they're back up to 8. And tonight, when you didn't get a whole lot from Knox, you got more from him than you did BR3 and Big Z. But you were back up to an 8 rotation. You still had 5 guys injecting enough in there. And I'm counting Boogie amongst the top 5 for the Razorbacks tonight when I look at everything, when I look at his minutes and what he did on the floor to help Arkansas. And it proved, I think the other thing is for the Razorbacks now, they've beaten 2 out-of-conference teams. In the last 2 times they've played 2 out-of-conference teams that are good, Michigan and now Kansas. And again, you're bridging early December into late March and saying, well, what's your point? Well, I think Arkansas struggles against really high-quality SEC teams. They could stay in those games, but they do have the tendency to have the self-inflicted wounds, and that causes them problems. We saw it again tonight. Kansas is not at that level. But at least St. John's, at least Arkansas is not one of the 14 SEC teams. Several of those, if they win their first rounders, have a top-tier 1 or 2 seed SEC team. Arkansas is a little bit blessed, I think. And though St. John's brings a whole other kettle of fish in terms of problems for you, assuming you're going to play the Red Storm in the next round, in the second round, at least you're out of the SEC against that kind of team, and maybe you can reset a little bit and bring some qualities that your league, they get so used to you that Pitino and his team, despite how good they are, might have their own problems with, because we know Arkansas can stay attached for long periods of time against really good teams, the ones that, only lost 4, 5, 6 games to be 1 or 2 seeds. But again, it's the decision-making and some of the problems. But maybe Arkansas can find a formula to continue to maybe minimize some of that going up against a team like St. John's, which, by the way, still trails by a point to Omaha with midway through the first half. It's a St. John's team. Let's just get into it real quick after I get through the team stats and what some of the Kansas players did. From a team standpoint, it was a tale of 2 halves, 47-44 at halftime. Arkansas in a high-octane offensive game led. And the Razorbacks win by 7, so they ended up being +4 in the second half in a game that was really more of a grind, Kansas in the zone. And then I thought Arkansas got kind of goofy passive with the bad, lazy passes and taking some weird angles, again, to some of their shots. or bypassing shots that might have been there. We've seen this team do that before and make some pass out that wasn't necessary. But Arkansas, 28 of 65, 43% overall. Only 9 of 30 in the second half, and that was partly because they took 13 three-pointers trying to shoot over that zone and only made 2 in the final 20 minutes. So after shooting 54% in the first half, Arkansas ends up 11 percentage points worse overall for the game because of that second half. So 28 of 65, 43.1%. 6 of 24 from 3, 25%. The Razorbacks were 4 of 11 at halftime. Again, only 2 of 13 in the second half. They kept taking them. The Razorbacks did. But here's where I thought, and so let's go through Kansas in both levels as well. The Jayhawks, 25 of 58, 43.1%, identical percentage to Arkansas shooting from the field. And Kansas wasn't great in the first half shooting, even though they were only down 3 and scored 44 points. They weren't good shooting overall because Arkansas was dominating the paint, plus 12, 24 to 12 at the break. But what Kansas did, so identical shooting percentage when we look at the arc of the game when it ended, but Arkansas took 7 more shots. How many times have we seen games where Arkansas takes 10, 12, 15 fewer shots just because of their own self-inflicted wounds, high turnovers, and getting killed on the offensive glass, and a combination of things like that? Well, tonight, the trends flipped a little bit from half to half. By the way, Kansas was 6 of 11 at halftime from 3, over 50%, 54.5%. Finished the game 8 of 17. So they were only 2 of 6 in the second half. Not only did Arkansas do a good job of minimizing, changing, forcing Kansas to take a different tack to score, taking that 3 line away. So 8 of 17, that's a really high efficiency when you look at that, 47.1%. But relative to the first half, only 2 of 6 in the second half, 33% in those final 20 minutes. And Arkansas only gets burned overall in the game in this, -2 from how many they made, 6 versus Kansas's 8 makes. Kansas, a little better at the foul line. Let's go to the when we look at it percentage-wise, but here's what's interesting. Arkansas finished 17 of 20 on freebies. 85%. You'll take that all day long. Kansas, 14 of 16, a little better percentage-wise, 87.5%. Arkansas, +4 in attempts, +3 in makes. Not as good percentage-wise, but what the big deal here is that Arkansas, yeah, they made some at the end when Kansas was trying to stop the clock. So it was really about even when you look at the attempts before that part of it. So 2 things. Once they did stop fouling to stop the clock, Arkansas made their free throws. They closed basically perfect at the foul line. When you look at the end of the game, guys like Nelly Davis, DJ Wagner in there somewhere, Billy Richmond, they made all their free throws. But I think the other interesting thing was at halftime, Arkansas was a perfect 5 of 5. But Kansas was 10 of 12. Kansas took 7, more than doubled Arkansas up in attempts at the break, and they had doubled Arkansas up in makes, 10 to 5. And so the second half, Arkansas got back in it in terms of the free throw line game, and that's as big of a storyline to me as anything. Because not only did you get even in the attempts and actually surpass at the end, because again, they were fouling to stop the clock to extend the game, but you shot a comparable percentage. You made your free throws, they made theirs, and the free throw line didn't beat you. The 3-point line was the only thing I felt that was really keeping Kansas as an equalizer for so much of this game, but it didn't kill you if you were Arkansas. But you were a little bit better in the paint as well when you look at the Razorbacks at the end of this game. Arkansas +6, +10 at 12 at halftime. That narrowed a little bit, but you started taking away the threes. I mentioned that. So you end up +6 points in the paint, 34-28 to end it. Arkansas -4 in overall rebounds. They were -5 at halftime, so they closed the gap a little bit. 38-34 Kansas advantage. But here was another big difference. We mentioned Trevor Brazile on that offensive glass. Arkansas was double up at halftime in offensive rebounds, 8-4. They end up winning +1, 12-11. So Arkansas in the second half, 8-3 in offensive rebounds. Advantage Razorbacks. And again, I look at Trevor Brazile for a lot of that, especially with the putbacks. He cashed those in. Second chance points, a big advantage for Arkansas. In the first half, it was +1 Kansas, 7-6. Arkansas ends up +7, 16-9. Again, second chance points, big advantage when we look at the totality of this game. Arkansas +6 in the turnovers department, 16-10. But they only cast that in for a +2 advantage in points off turnovers. And I thought Arkansas with only 3 turnovers at halftime. Kansas had 6. And Arkansas really didn't have enough separation in points off turnovers in the first half. In fact, Kansas had 1 more point off turnovers, 6-5. Arkansas ends up +2 there. A lot of that, again, Arkansas forces 6 turnovers in the last 256, 257 in that 15-5 run. I think Kansas got a couple of free throws late from Mayo, and I think Griffin ends up hitting a 3 when Arkansas was up 6 to cut the lead in half down to 75-72, with about whatever it was, 11 seconds left. Other than that, it was Arkansas forcing turnovers and getting stops on defense to close that game out. So we spend so much time talking about Arkansas plays. Part of the identity is playing 2 opponents, the team on the other end of the court on the different bench and different jerseys, and themselves and the self-inflicted wounds. Yeah, we saw some of that, but Arkansas minimized that down the stretch, and they became the team that capitalized on mistakes and forced some of those mistakes and was resilient and closed the right way. I mean, what else can you say? Under 3 minutes to go, you're down 3 and you win the game by 7, a 15-5 run. You close the game the right way. And in the NCAA tournament, it's all about survive and advance. And now you stay in the big dance. And now you've got more. My pregame article focused so much on this idea of the mafioso boss sit down. They're made men, Pitino and Calipari. They're the Italian descent coaches. Their careers are entangled. They were both at Kentucky. They both won titles at Kentucky. They faced each other when Pitino then went to Louisville, the hated rival of Kentucky, and they squared off every year while he was still there, for however many games that was. It's a great history there. But this tournament is intriguing for a lot of reasons. But in this pod and in this West region, there's a lot. I mean, I look at Florida, the number 1 seed. I think it's probably the best team in the country right now. UConn and Oklahoma is an 8-9. UConn two-time defending national champs. Texas Tech is a 3 seed, is scary good out of the Big 12. Probably slept on a little bit. You've seen you're going to see some teams at the back end and some of these lower seeds or higher seeds like Omaha that's already given St. John's a good game. But Kansas, again, Arkansas and Kansas in some ways with some of the playing down to their weaknesses and making mistakes. There was a bit of a mirror game going on there at times, and Arkansas was better in the end than Kansas was. You'll take them any way you can get them, and Arkansas authored some of that. It wasn't just Kansas doing weird stuff. But I thought, when the game started, it was early, and Adu came out hot, had 10 points. Dickinson had 9. It was going back and forth. Hunter Dickinson, the 3rd-team All-American, seems like he's been in college forever. 7-2 Mountain, 3 years at Michigan, a couple of seasons now at Kansas. I think the ride's finally over for him. But he averaged a double-double coming in, 17-plus points, over 10 rebounds, 11 points and 9 rebounds. And he had 9 of those points early. So Arkansas just took him out of the game. Other than, he did have the 9 rebounds, 4 assists, but he didn't have any blocks in this game. He averages nearly 1.5 blocks per game. He didn't have any steals. He did have the 4 assists, but he also had 4 turnovers. And what I noticed that was different about this game than the exhibition game, other than a huge 7-2 guy on the court where he was absent in the exhibition season, is that his screen game, especially early, Arkansas struggled making decisions to go under, over. They lost track of 3-point shooters. And he does a really good job of using that frame, spreading it out, and being physical in the dribble handoff game to create space and driving angles off that. If his guards aren't going to shoot off of it, they're finding a driving lane. And so he did a real good job of that. I thought Arkansas did a better job at times of solving some of that. But then they lost track of 3-point shooters in the first half when you look at A.J. Storr, mostly Mayo. Mayo with 18 points, 6 rebounds, a couple assists, a couple of steals, was 4 or 5 from 3, made all 4 of his free throws. But he also had 4 turnovers, so he wasn't perfect. Storr with 15 points and 3 rebounds and a block. But Storr was 2 of 3 from 3. All of that was in the first half. So Arkansas took that away from him. Mentioned Kansas only got off 6 3-point attempts in the second half after going 6 of 11 in the first half. They only made 2 in those final 20 minutes. But Storr didn't get any attempts. Arkansas lost track of Mayo in a secondary transition, wide open 3 that he knocked down. Arkansas could never quite expand on that 10 or 11-point lead, and then those lazy pass turnovers and some other missed opportunities on offense. We know what what that movie looks like and what the script has been like all year. But the one thing, again, Arkansas minimized some of the problems. They didn't foul a 3-point shooter tonight. A Razorback didn't tip in a basket for the other team. I mean, I know that didn't happen a lot, but I'm just trying to think of all the ways. There were no flagrant ones for the Hogs tonight. There were, there was, overall, even though there was a bad stretch there, again, the Hogs were outscored 23-10 after going up 11, and they were down, they were down 3. So that happened. But we look at some of the players. KJ Adams was the one guy when he went out in that last stretch of minutes in this game. I really thought that was as big as anything for Arkansas because he was problematic getting to the basket. He was getting position, really low, deep block at 6'6". He's physical, and he's really quick turning to the basket. He's got all the little finishing angles, but he didn't finish the game because he got hurt. But he had 13 points, 4 rebounds, a couple assists, a steal. He also had 3 turnovers in this game, but he was a box plus 5 in his 32 minutes. He was probably the most impactful. He and Mayo Store in the first half, but I thought he was the most impactful interior player for Kansas in this game. With Dickinson just got shut out. They tried to work the ball to him. He got some good post-up position going against Adu, and we talked about Adu's 3 blocks, but even when Adu wasn't getting blocks, he bothered Dickinson on that low block and just trying to get into little turnaround shots. Dickinson just didn't hit. Again, he was 4 of 13 overall from the field. 1 of 4 from 3. He hit an early 3, and then the rest he took, he didn't make. So, again, you can look at a lot of guys. I thought, again, Adu with his 5 rebounds, but some of the stuff he did defensively, getting 3 blocks, 3 steals, but I thought he outplayed. I think the stats back it up. Hunter Dickinson, 2 guys that didn't play in exhibition season. And so one of the thoughts is, well, one guy's an All-American, one guy's a returning All-SEC player. The other guy had another All-American season and an All-League season, and Adu didn't. We know the reasons. He played hurt for the longest time. He didn't move well. And we saw once Arkansas had attrition with guys like Adu Thero coming off that front line, even though he's not a 5, it just forced other guys into taking their opportunities, and they've made the most of them. Again, you can't mention Jonas Adu on that front line without mentioning Trevor Brazile. And again, Brazile tonight with 11 points, 12 rebounds. All right, I've spent 37 minutes and haven't even gotten to the recruiting. Let's do that real quick. So yesterday, a day before, I guess it's good news week for Arkansas, not only making the big dance as a 10 seed. I haven't been on in 8 days, so forgive me. I've had other stuff going on. It's kind of derailed what I want to do this time of year. And that sucks, but that is just what it is. I don't want to spend time going through all that. But I will say this, Arkansas is having a hell of a week. I thought the 10 seed was appropriate. I thought the matchup was great. I think the matchup with St. John's can be decent if it comes to that. The Red Storm up 6 now, 28-22 with about 4 minutes left in the first half. So Omaha's hanging in there, but St. John's, after trailing 7-0 out of the gates, has made up a lot of ground here. But again, I think Arkansas great there. But Arkansas also gets its 4th commitment, the first non-high school player. That was yesterday on Wednesday. And I've talked about this guy on these segments. I've done reporting on him. I've been in contact since early March, on this player, but through his agency representation, his main agent and his secondary agent. So, I've talked about him and had some quotes on his interest in Arkansas. But his name, Kareem, and I'm going to butcher the last name. I refer to it as Artal, but it's spelled Rtail. He's a second letter E from spelling the word retail. Whatever, that's not funny, but it's my humor. But a 6'9" forward, he's really kind of a stretch 4. Can probably work in like a Adu Thero as a 3-4 combo if Calipari, once he gets to campus, wants to use him with bigger lineups and 2 other true bigs. He can play that 4 spot, though, as a stretch 4. But 6'9", a 20-year-old Lebanese forward, has played the last year or 2, beginning as a teenager in the Lithuanian Pro League. It's a good pro league. And he's a guy that his agent told me, and I tweeted this out, he's working on getting his school visa now, and plans to enroll in time for summer session 1. And usually the move-in and the start of summer session 1 is whenever the end of the Memorial Day weekend holiday is, and that first Tuesday after that is when it usually is. So, typically early June. Maybe it starts late May this year. I don't know. I didn't look that up, but that's his goal, is to be here in time for that. So, you talk about how important is a visit. Well, here's a guy that's, an international player. He was down to Arkansas, Penn State, Butler, and SMU. And I think this is a good piece. Arkansas has cleaned up in the early signing period in high school. When you look at backcourts and wings, this is Calipari's first frontline player that's not a transfer portal addition, which he did in his first recruiting class. He brought guys with him, Big Z and Adu Thero, technically retention because they played for him, but also technically portal. Loosely retention because they played for him, technically portal because they had to transfer from Kentucky to Arkansas. And then you had Jonas Adu out of the portal. But that first high school recruiting class were guards and wings. Same thing in this high school sign class in the early period, with two top 10 rated 5-star guards, a 1 and a 2, plus a top 70, 80 rated combo guard and wing out of the state of Arkansas, 4-star. So it's been guards and backcourt out of high school so far, and so far we're still there. But this is the first non-transfer portal college proven player that Calipari's added to the front line, or any position for that matter, because Big Z, an international player, had at least 15 games as a freshman at Kentucky last year. So there's more than one way to look at it, but I think it's good to bring a veteran presence, a guy that's been playing against professional level players. It's hard when you watch the highlights to completely judge. He's got a quick first step and a good framework for shot creation off the bounce, putting the ball on the deck as a guy that, is he 6'9"? I don't know. Is he closer to 6'8"? What is he really? Is he 6'7.5"? I don't know. But I'll say this, sometimes it's hard to watch international highlights and gauge someone's quickness and athleticism because it's a little bit different when you get in the SEC than it is at those levels. There are pros and cons to playing in a pro league in Europe, and some of the things that the advanced level of play with the 5-out playing and the spacing and passing and the way that it moves. But there's also things that you can't learn playing there in terms of length and athleticism that you're going to see once you get to the college game, and then potentially as an NBA player if you're good enough for that. I think the biggest thing here when we talk about this commitment, a couple of things. One is, I'm told, and I put this out on Twitter a few days ago, that Calipari has been given the resources. He's been green-lighted to expand his roster as needed to an 11 deep. And I'm assuming if there's enough NIL money to go around to do that, he's going to do that. But I don't know that for sure. He could cap it at 10 or keep it at 9, but 11. And so you have to look at what Calipari does from this point forward, after that early high school signing period that happened in November, with what he does moving forward, with the idea that this is not likely a plan that only ends at 9 deep, maybe 11. So you're not sure yet what he has envisioned for individual players as he gets them for that rotation. Is this a guy that's a back end 9? Is he 10 or 11? Is that something that's obviously subject to change based on how you finish, who you get? Because Calipari and Arkansas are not going to be. They can spend as much NIL money as they want to. They can match anybody in that, and the sky's the limit in terms of just where do you want to go with it. So this is a player. When I look at it, I think, well, this could be insurance. Another frontline piece that brings some versatility. A guy like Trevor Brazile, who became what we saw when he was out in Maui, and then saw little glimpses of here and there last season, and in non-conference play against Michigan and some of the Quad 4 cupcakes, we're seeing consistently now what he brings to the table. Does it change the calculations on, can you get a guy like that back now? Has he helped himself in terms of finally moving on and trying to, get his pro career started? Could you get him back? Is this a guy that you bring in Artal that can help you supplement a loss if you lose a Brazile? Because there's some versatility in what this guy can do. He can stretch the floor a little bit, shoot some threes. He can work a mid-range shot. He can post you up in the mid-range, and he's got good footwork. He's got good quickness at his size, it looks like. and can turn and get into a little fadeaway or a little rise and shoot shot. And he can get all the way to the basket. He's got this crafty Euro steps in there too. Hasn't been a big rebounder. He's not just an insane knockdown 3-point shooter percentage wise. But he checks some boxes. And again, he's 20 years old. Calipari says his rosters need to be older than they have in the past. So even if he continues to try to expand this high school recruiting class, which is where I'm going next with this, part of that is, what is your retention going to look like? But also, what are your plans in the portal? We haven't even gotten to portal yet because Artal is not a portal player. Maybe we're mincing words here. It is a veteran guy that's played against European pros and not a college transfer guy who's 20 or older playing against, veteran college teams and doing it for a while. So there's some of the same value there maybe. But I look at this and I think, okay, where could you be going with Nate Ament now? Because I see people ask me, what does this say about Nate Ament? Well, I'm not sure. He's got a decision to make. He's said he's going to make it publicly on April 1st during the McDonald's All-American Game event. The national title game's a few days later, the Final Four and the national title game a few days later. So he'll make it while the season, I guess, is technically still going for college. But Arkansas could still be very much in the mix, or maybe they already know they're not, and they were going after Artal either way. Or this firmed up if they know that they're not getting a mint, that this is a scholarship they want to use on this player, because they'll just get another portal frontline piece or versatile front 3-4 combo out of the portal. So we don't really know the answer to that, but I don't think in of itself it signals anything. I don't think it signals anything just by looking at it and saying, oh, this must mean that. It could be that Arkansas has already heard news on that and that this was an easier move to make, but it may not be at all, because I don't see this guy standing in front of Nate Ament and what he would mean at Arkansas and what his role would be from day one, which is a starter and one of those guys that, is plug and play because of what he brings to the table. This guy may only be a depth piece either way. So I don't think it stands in the way of that. That's not to say Arkansas doesn't already know and the news isn't good, but we don't know that, and I don't believe that at this point. Now, again, that could change at some point. There are a lot of people think it's Louisville's guy to lose. We know Duke's been in the mention up there. There's reasons to think maybe not Duke now, but we'll see. Now, look, there's some other portal names. Owen Freeman, Iowa, 6'10", sophomore. We know Iowa's got a coaching change. Here's a guy averaging 16.7 points, nearly 7 rebounds, nearly 2 blocks per game, shoot nearly 64% from the field, only 60% free throw shooter, but a big body at 6'10". Again, he was a sophomore, so he's got 2 years of experience in the Big Ten. I've seen Arkansas on social media. I don't know how valid it is. Arkansas's name mentioned with him in 3 or 4 other schools. We'll see if that gets any traction. Remember, the portal doesn't officially open until Monday, the 24th. But players are already letting these national recruiting analysts know they're getting in. So some of that reporting is coming out. Let's see if Freeman's actually somebody that Arkansas is really in on. I've got a couple of sources telling me OB, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Agbim, Obi Agbim from Wyoming, a 6'3" senior guard transferring out, 17.6 points per game, 3.4 assists, 3.2 rebounds, 1.1 steals, nearly 47% from the field overall. This year, he was 80 of 183 from 3, nearly 44% from 3 on really solid volume, and a 79% free throw shooter. So 6'3" guard out of Wyoming. I'm told Arkansas will initially be involved. Let's see. It's early names getting out. There's probably 50 or 75 or 80 names, somewhere in that range. I'm probably way behind now. It's probably 100 that are telegraphing that when it becomes official, they'll be in the portal on Monday. But here's one to keep an eye on, Obi Agbim, if I'm saying that right. Here's one that really intrigues me. Elijah Freeman, Division II, Lincoln Memorial, a 6'8" combo forward, big wing. As a freshman this past season, 19 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 2.7 assists, but his shooting splits 58% from the field, 45% from 3, and 80% from the foul line. This is a guy that really intrigues me. Have no idea where Arkansas will be in that. I have another name that I've seen out there going in the portal out of North Dakota. He's a 6'6" wing shooter, three-point shooter in high volume. And we'll see if Arkansas gets in the mix or not. I know some other blue bloods. A blue blood in the SEC, Kentucky, will be involved. But Trayson Eaglestaff, again, out of North Dakota, 6'6" junior, 18.9 points per game, just under 3 rebounds, just under 2.5 assists per game. But he was 84 of 234 from 3 this season. You talk about volume from 3, 36%. But in his career at North Dakota, over 37% from 3 on a buttload of volume. And so, again, this is not Calipari's typical target, but if you really want to shore up and give yourself, if you're going to go 11 deep and you want to go after somebody and spend a little NIL money on just a guy with a little perimeter size and shooting chops that can really just string together 2, 3, 4, like we saw Mayo tonight. Arkansas really doesn't have that yet. Nelly Davis is streaky. DJ Wagner, second half streaky. DJ Wagner strung together some made threes. We've seen, again, Trevor Brazile have games where he's knocking down 3 threes. Arkansas could use a guy that you identify immediately as somebody that defenses have to account for as a three-point shooter. It brings a different element. It helps you offensively with other guys. Could Trayson Eaglestaff be the type of player? Not saying Arkansas will be in on him, but could he be the type of player? Here's another name out there that's going to enter the portal. Tony Matlock started his career at Kentucky under Cal. Spent the last 3 seasons at Providence. Has been a really good player there. Undersized producer, 6'7" forward. Undersized because he gets a lot of it, nearly 17 points per game, between 7 and 8 rebounds per game. Really active guy. I have no idea if there'd be any interest there, but another name that's coming out that has some experience with Cal. So we've gone through recruiting a little bit here as we get to 52 minutes. I appreciate you for joining me on HogvilleNet YouTube Live. My name's Kevin McPherson, and I have been away for a while. It's been about 8 days in between. The last time I was on was after Arkansas's first round SEC tournament win over South Carolina, and I spent most of the time complaining about how Arkansas finds a way to hand the keys over to the other team with here, I've had enough success. You take the keys and see if you can win. That kind of a thing. There was a glimpse of that tonight, and you thought, oh boy, here we go again. It's snowballing. But the Razorbacks slammed the door. I mean, a 15-5 run to close this game. John Calipari now 1-0 as head hog. How about that? And let's say it's St. John's. This is the team. The history between Pitino and Calipari is rich. It'll be a Saturday game, first weekend of the NCAAT tournament. You love it. You love it. It's a 2 seed. All right. So the Arkansas's not done well in terms of these 1 and 2 seed type of teams. They've been close in some of them, but those teams are just a little bit better than some of these other teams that Arkansas finagles a win out of because they're not going to make as many mistakes probably. But St. John's, it's not perfect. 64th in offensive efficiency. Arkansas came into tonight 18th in defensive efficiency according to KenBom. 64th for St. John's in offense, but first in defensive efficiency. So the number 1 defensive team in the country. But don't let the offensive efficiency fool you. It's not horrible. The three-point shooting is only 30% from 3 on the season. That's like 342nd in D1. But here's what this team does well, and it really lines up with where Arkansas can have major problems. 14.5 offensive rebounds per game. That ranks 4th in Division I. And they turn your ass over. Nearly 16 turnovers they force per game. Over 9 steals, which ranks right up there at the top. One of the top teams in the country forcing live ball turnovers. So they force 16 turnovers per game, and they get 14.5 rebounds. So despite their poor three-point shooting, they take a lot of shots because they turn you over, and then they shrink down your field goal attempts. So, and then if you don't turn it over, they're taking away good shots. They know how to defend inside and out. And so this is a problem area for a team like Arkansas when you look at that part of the matchup. I think personnel-wise, you've got 5, 6, maybe 7 guys, probably 5 or 6 for St. John's that worry you in that rotation. But a team, again, 14.5 offensive rebounds, and they force 15.6 turnovers per game. You see how this team gets it done. Not a great free throw shooting team, 68.9%, but they get 23.5 made 2-point field goals per game. That's 5th in Division I, so they know where their bread is buttered. They understand they got to get up field goal attempts inside the arc, and they can beat you that way. They're tough at both ends in that physicality game. And when you look at it, Luis, the guard, 18 points per game, the wing, really good player. Zuby Ejiofor, who started his career at Kansas and didn't get much run there, has been really good for Patino at St. John's. 14.5 points, over 8 rebounds per game. He's a solid player. And they've got other guys. Obviously, Kadari Richmond's one of the toughest matchups in college basketball because he's a jack of all trades, all the things he can do at both ends. They've got other guys. It'll be a tough matchup for Arkansas. But first, the Red Storm have to get past Omaha. We've still got 2 minutes left in the first half. It's a 6-point lead for the Red Storm. Another 3. I've seen several threes go up by St. John's. It's just not their game. But, man, they make things tough. Well, they're showing a highlight. Maybe it's halftime and I've got the score wrong. I glanced up and I hadn't been looking. I think it's halftime they're talking about it. Not sure about the halftime score as it is. By the way, let's just jump into this real quick. I'll just finish the St. John's kind of mini preview here by saying I think it's advantage Red Storm because it's a team with 4 losses, 30 wins. Will be probably 31 wins after tonight. If it's Omaha, advantage Arkansas. But Arkansas can stay close with St. John's, and then it becomes, does Arkansas have the head-scratching BS that just they can't get over the finish line against teams of that caliber that know how to finish and win close games? It's not like St. John's just rolled to 30 wins. They had to win their share of close games, and that's what really good teams, borderline great teams do. Can Arkansas be that? Just for a few minutes anyway, if it's in a close game and stays in there. I think it will be close. All right, St. John's up 5 at halftime, 33-28. So we'll see what happens. Only a 5-point advantage there. And maybe there's a recipe if you keep an eye on Omaha and watch other game tape in the next 24 hours. But I think the other thing good that's different than the SEC tournament right now is you don't play every day. You get a day in between games. You're now back to an 8-man rotation. So Arkansas's got a lot going for it right now, I think. And again, I don't think St. John's is just going to come out and destroy the Hogs. The matchup's not great because of what the strengths of St. John's are compared to Arkansas's weaknesses. That's the one problem. Personnel-wise, I don't think it's an advantage necessarily that much for St. John's, if at all. It's just a matter of getting Arkansas to be tough on the glass, take care of the basketball. Can they do both of those things for extended periods of time in both halves against a team like that? History says not so much. St. John's got their hands full now. They do. I mean, but I expect St. John's to figure out a way to win. The SEC, Texas in the play-in game getting bounced. North Carolina routing San Diego State. The ACC's been awful since. We'll see what North Carolina does tonight, or is it tomorrow they play? But Texas A&M, Auburn, Tennessee taking care of business. I haven't seen all the scores yet. And so it was McNeese, Will Wade, who's the hot name now in coaching. I guess he's serving his sentence at McNeese, but they're out. They're 1-0 in the tournament and upset a 5 seed. I think it was in Providence. That's what I was trying to spit out earlier, and I forgot which team it was. But it was McNeese. I don't know how I forgot that. All right, we're nearly an hour in, 58 minutes, 40 seconds in. I'm going to sign off. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I've spent 50 minutes talking tonight. That's about, 45 minutes longer than I've talked in about 8 days to anybody. So I've had a couple of brief radio spots. And that's about as much as I can muster. So I want to thank everybody for sticking with me tonight. I'm a clunky ride. I know I repeat things. But it's good news for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Again, pick up a commit yesterday. You've got 4 in this class now, building in Calipari's second recruiting class, top 5 rated class in high school rankings. Maybe going to get better if you get Nate Ament. That would be great. But you finished your season the right way. You started 0-5 in league play. You bounce back from that. You got to the dance. You've already got one upset over a 7 seed. And now you're keeping your eyes on St. John's and Omaha. And what a feel-good story for John Calipari. I'm going to close with that. I mean, this is a guy that's been through a lot of heat. And that 0-5, leaving Kentucky nationally, from Big Blue Nation especially, and leaving and starting 0-5 in league play, man, everybody was salivating. Arkansas was 11-7 at that point. Then you split your next 2 games at home, and you were 1-6 in SEC play, and 12-8, I guess, at that point overall. and people were just, lining up to, lining up for his funeral. And look what he's done. He and that staff you've seen individual player improvement. You've seen Arkansas battle through the adversity of attrition. You've seen Arkansas improve as a team. So individual player improvement has translated to team success. Yeah, you still see knucklehead stuff that's unexplained. But then they find ways to be resilient, overcome that. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. And it's good enough now to get a win for Calipari in the NCAA tournament. Again, he was bounced out of the first round last year in a David versus Goliath upset. His teams went 1-3 in 3 NCAA tournaments in his last 5 years at Kentucky. And another one of those losses in the first round was a David versus Goliath against St. Peter's 4 years ago. This is a big win over Kansas and Bill Self. It's a signature tournament win for a first round, getting to round of 32. It's one that's being talked about right now. Calipari's got a chance if he can clip Pitino in round 2 of really, having some wild success for the first time in 6 years, getting back to a Sweet 16 in the second weekend. So if you're an Arkansas Razorback fan, you're loving this right now. If you're John Tyson and all the powers that be, you're loving this right now. And because your recruiting is going well, and now your results are marrying up to that, you're off to a hell of a start in year 1 with John Calipari, despite some of that ugliness that we just went through. All right, signing off. Thank you for joining me. HogvilleNet YouTube Live. Please hit subscribe, like, and share if you haven't. I'm Kevin McPherson. If something breaks between now and round of 32 Saturday in the Providence Pod, I'm coming back on. If not, you got to wait till then to see me. Maybe you need the break after I went over an hour tonight. But thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Take care. See you soon.